Did you know the number one beer fest in North America takes place right outside of Houston in Katy? Yep, the popular Wild West Brew Fest is happening March 27th through the 29th, and it's bigger than ever. They're going to have over 100 vendors and brewers, so your hands are going to be full with amazing beer and wines all weekend long. And the best part, the festival supports charitable organizations with their net proceeds, so you're doing some good while enjoying some brews. Tickets are on sale right now at wildwestbrewfest.com. That's wildwestbrewfest.com. The Imprint Margaret Root Brown Reading Series is proud to announce a night with two renowned poets, Jennifer Chang, who won the William Carlos Williams Award, and Naomi Shihab Nye, National Book Award finalist and former U.S. Young People's Poet Laureate. Hear them both live on March 3rd at the Alley Theater. Tickets are only $5 and free for students and seniors. There's also going to be a book sale thanks to Brazos Bookstore and a book signing where you can meet the authors. Visit imprint.org for more details. That's imprint.org. Welcome to Rodeo Week on CityCast Houston, sponsored by Destination Bryan. Bryan, Texas is calling your name. It's filled with real people, authentic places, and legendary stories just a short drive away from Houston. Plan your visit at destinationbryan.com. And stay tuned because at the end of today's episode, we have a special rodeo tip from our friends at Destination Bryan. Today on CityCast Houston, we're kicking off Rodeo Week by celebrating our iconic cowboy culture. You've probably listened to Beyonce's Cowboy Carter album, but did you know that Black Cowboys go way back in Texas? Joining me to dive into that rich history is University of Houston professor Dr. Alicia Odewale. It's Monday, February 24th. I'm Rahil Ramzan-Ali, and here's what Houston's talking about. Dr. Odewale, I know you've listened to Cowboy Carter so many times, like so many Houstonians, but in that album, what does Beyonce get right about Black cowboy culture, and is there anything that she gets wrong?
That's a good question. I can say that listening to the album, it sounds like she's really captured the spirit of Black cowboys and what it means to be a Black cowboy, both as a man or a woman, and as someone who might be free or enslaved. There's a lot of different contexts to what it means to be a cowboy.
Yeah, and we're going to dive into that because it is such an important history to know about. And your class, by the way, it's at U of H. It's called Before Cowboy Carter, Black Towns, Black Freedom. And it's such an interesting title because it seems like ever since Beyonce released her country album, it's just catapulted Black cowboys into the public light and really the whole culture. Why was it important for you to take a step back and look at the history before the album?
When I came to the University of Houston, I really wanted to teach a class on Black towns. So I was always planning on teaching Black towns. But then when Beyonce dropped this wonderful album, this was an opportunity for us to dive in deeper into this history. But also I was getting increasingly frustrated with the idea that Black cowboy culture was somehow new or that Black country music was something that was new. But this has been around for generations.
It has. And the history of the Black cowboy in Texas runs deep, as you mentioned. And look, I'll be honest, like most Houstonians, I wasn't aware of it, right? And, it kind of makes us feel like, hey, wait, why is Beyonce doing this? Why did she transition into country music? Like, is she just doing this to get, album sales, clicks, right? But that wasn't it. There's actually a deep history. What is that history of Black cowboys in Texas?
Well, across the country and in Texas, we have people who are starting off enslaved. So the first cowboys are enslaved Black people, specifically Black men. And they're called cowboys because this was actually a derogatory term ascribed to men who are doing the labor of herding, wrangling, and dealing with horses and cattle. So there'll be like a house boy, a cowboy, a horse boy. So there's all these like different types of people who are doing enslaved labor on a ranch or a plantation space. But out in the West, we're mainly dealing with ranches. So these are people who are starting off, they are enslaved. And so thinking about what does it mean to be enslaved but on a horse and traveling thousands of miles on these trails across the country.
Wow.
What does that even look like?
That is such a tough thing to hear, right? Because we celebrate that word cowboy now, and it's become a part of our culture. It's become part of our lexicon. When did that change? Where it went from a derogatory term, or is it still considered derogatory?
So, traditionally, when you first start to see cowboys on film, they are all white. So, the idea of taking this term and it becoming something that represents only white men, an only white entity, is something that happened as soon as they start to film and create films and movie stars around cowboy culture. So there's kind of like this taking of the name, but also the
Oh.
whitewashing of this name that happens early on in, say, early 1900s, whenever they start actually filming. But it also connects to a lot of live performances, such as minstrelsy, where you
Mhm.
have a lot of people in blackface pretending to be black cowboys. The first time we see James Beckworth, who was a black cowboy on film, he's portrayed by a white actor. That is something that is becomes the norm. So we
Oh,
start to
wow.
see the first images that people see of cowboys are white, and that becomes the thing that people gravitate to the most.
What was the treatment of cowboys like, especially black cowboys, as they are on the Western Front?
So, picture people who are in the saddle 12 to 16 hours a day, and they are riding and making about either $1.50 a week up to, if you can make it up to trail boss, about $30 a week.
Oh, wow.
Nat Love, a famous black cowboy, he writes in his 1907 autobiography about becoming a trail boss and what that means. And the pay bump that he gets to $30 was huge.
Mm.
But they're riding in all types of weather conditions: blizzards, storms, dust, everything, you name it. But they're also facing snakes, scorpions, bears, wolves, coyotes. All the wilderness is there. They're also battling for a piece of freedom and land alongside other indigenous peoples whose lands have been taken from them. So it's all out war out here on the frontier.
Wow.
Being a cowboy means you have to protect yourself and your family at all costs. I think a lot of my students get confused about like why didn't they just run away? Why didn't they just take the horse and go? Why don't we have more black cowboys escaping slavery? But you have to think about their families, their wives, their children, their parents, and people, their enslavers threatening to kill their family members if they ran away. So they will travel thousands of miles. I think the first
Mhm.
trail rides are coming from Texas all the way to San Francisco. So think about how far that is to drive. Now imagine doing that on a horse.
Oh my gosh. How long would that take?
That would take a good month to
Wow.
actually herd cattle from Texas to San Francisco. And the reason they're doing that is because they can get about 10 to 20 times the amount, the price for the cattle in California with the gold rush than they would have gotten in Texas.
Wow. That is so fascinating. Through all this hardship, hard work, this beautiful culture came about, right? And it kind of shaped and influenced what we know and call current day rodeo. Tell me about that.
When you talk to Demetrius Pearson, who's been writing about this for decades, he talks about these cowboys as our first black athletes,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to the rodeo. And when it comes to the rodeo, they're often the ones when they first start to be part of these integrated rodeos. They're not allowed to ride at the same time as everyone else, so they're the ones performing where the rodeo ends, or when the rodeo hasn't started yet. They're not scored fairly. They're not given prizes for their immense talent, and they're not recognized.
I'm glad you brought up Dr. Pearson. He teaches at the University of Houston as well. And he actually talked to us in a previous interview about this. And here's what he had to say.
Willie Thomas, he's a major player. He's told me about from time to time he had to sleep on a park bench until the rodeo started. He would walk over to the rodeo pen, climb over the fence, and sleep on the benches until the rodeo started. As a matter of fact, he had to ask a white fella to go in and get his winnings. That's how tough it was for some of these early Black rodeo cowboys.
So you have a lot of just people flying under the radar that are the most skilled ropers, riders. Bill Pickett inventing the whole bulldogging technique.
Yeah.
These cowboys have been on the front end of what it means to be athletes, to be hardworking, to have the most immense talent, but get the least recognition for it.
What's that timeline like? When did the Black Cowboys go from enslaved to being free cowboys and participating in these tournaments?
So it kind of happens in multiple ways. So you have enslaved cowboys are really around like 1840s, but Black people are in the West before that.
Yeah.
So I would say a lot of this history is happening in this transition from enslavement from 1800 to 1865, and then you have freedom that comes with the Emancipation Proclamation 1865. But there's so many different pathways to freedom that people are taking that it's hard to really trace exactly when things are starting. But they happen in parallel. So we have these white rodeos that are taking place, and they're not allowing Black people to participate for a very long time. So we actually start our own rodeos. There are Black rodeos happening across the country and still are today. Boley is the largest, Boley, Oklahoma. I grew up going to the Cowboys of Color Invitational Rodeo every year in Boley, Oklahoma, and we had a time.
Yeah.
And that's still a rodeo that happens today. But I just remember being part of this whole other culture where when you go to the rodeo, you have this experience where you can see your family. It's a family reunion. You can eat some wonderful food, listen to the music. Everybody's in their best outfit.
Oh, wow.
And the events, I mean, it's just an experience like no other, and it feels like another world where you can be your unapologetic Black country self
and celebrate it. Sounds like
and celebrate it. Yes,
is that happening here in Houston right now? Like, what is the Black cowboy culture like in H-Town?
Absolutely. March 7th, 2025 is going to be Black Heritage Day at the Houston Rodeo. My students and I will be there, but
cool.
They actually have a whole committee of people that have been planning Black Heritage Day at the Houston Rodeo. And it's an all day, all night thing. I think they start at 8 a.m. And these events are happening throughout the day just to celebrate Black heritage in connection to the Houston Rodeo. My students and I will be there at the exhibit hall, sharing our research on Black towns and sharing what they've been learning in our Before Cowboy Carter class. But this is an amazing opportunity to talk about what does this heritage look like today, and how we connected the past and present together, and how do we celebrate these connections?
Am I overselling it or like overhyping it? I know you have a course on Cowboy Carter, right? And it's brought so much to the mainstream.
Yes.
But has it like really revived the forgotten roots of the Black cowboy?
I think for me and my students, we're just excited to be able to talk about this, because this history, I mean, we've been talking about Black women in the West, Black cowboys, but also what does it mean to have outlaws and gunmen in the West, but also Black law officers, Buffalo soldiers. There's so many aspects to this history of when we're talking about Black people in the West and all the jobs that they would have been doing. It's not just the cowboys that are out here. There are so many different types of people who are doing different jobs, men and women, and a lot of them are owning their own businesses. And like I said, building Black towns out of darkness.
Yeah.
Thinking about what it means to venture out into the unknown, coming from the South and going all the way west. You don't know what you're going to find when you get there, but you are just going for the chance to have that freedom. And you're building a town out of in the dark. It's a miracle.
Yeah, it's a miracle. And you just think about that, right? There's like limited communication at that point. You literally have no idea outside of maybe like a couple of people who have told you like, hey, there's opportunities here.
It's mainly the newspapers. Black-owned newspapers are circulating and advertising, and that's what people are depending on and holding on to.
Mark your calendars, invite your friends, and of course, put on your dancing boots for the second annual Big Barn Dance Music Festival in Bryan, Texas. This weekend music festival is going to feature some of the best songwriters and pickers in country, bluegrass, and Americana music. It's happening March 27 to the 29th, and it's all an easy drive from Houston, just an hour and change. The festival starts with the Big Barn Dance Songwriter Series in downtown Bryan. Then you can head to the main festival grounds at Travis Midtown Park for a seated listening experience. And hey, if you like dancing at music festivals like I do, they'll have a big dance floor to put those boots to use. And check this out, on Saturday, the entire festival grounds will turn into a dance hall so you can two-step the night away under the open Texas sky. Learn more and get your tickets now at destinationbryan.com. That's destinationbryan.com. Have you ever seen a podcast host race in a camel race? No? Well, you will see it on March 7th because you can come watch me ride a camel at the Sam Houston Race Park on Friday, March 7th for their annual camel race. Yes, you heard that right. I'll be racing on a camel, so come cheer me on. It's at Sam Houston Race Park. They're going to have camel and ostrich races on March 7th and 8th, but they also have exciting thoroughbred racing action every weekend, so you can get in on the fun. If that's not enough, every weekend Sam Houston Race Park has live music, drink specials, amazing food, and one of the best Sunday brunches around. Sundays in March are definitely family fun days, so your entire squad will have a great time. Looking for some plans this Saturday, March 1st? Save on admission, food, and more with their popular Dollar Night. Race in for all the excitement because there's always something happening at Sam Houston Race Park. Check out shrp.com for more details. You know, you mentioned Black women in the West, and we've talked about the Black Cowboys. What were the women doing in regards to shaping what we know as Black cowboy culture, right? Or cowgirl culture, the rodeo industry. What was their role like?
Oh, it depends on who you ask. So we've got some really bad women in the West.
Oh, yeah.
Stagecoach Mary is one that I love to talk about. So Pony Express and other people who are delivering mail across the country. She's doing this in a stagecoach. She's traveling thousands of miles, delivering mail in, rain, sleet, or snow alongside these other trail riders. We have Clara Brown. She's known as the Angel of the Rockies. And I mean, when she steps into this, gold mining, coal mining town, it's something to behold that you can start from nothing. And a lot of these women started as enslaved women as well, and they become millionaires.
Wow. That is incredible.
Oh my gosh. But I learned a lot of this history by going to the Black Cowboy Museum in Rosenberg, Texas. Director Larry Callis is amazing, and he has so much history just on the walls everywhere.
And I'm glad you brought that up because there are several places to go check out and learn more about Black history and, of course, Black cowboy culture and history, right? And you actually, in your course with your students, y'all are taking these field trips to certain places. Now, if our listeners want to learn more about the important history, where should they go?
So we have been taking field trips. One, we did a whole Cowboy Carter hoedown with the students. So we learned some line dancing, but we will be at the rodeo March 7th. We just did our trip to the Black Cowboy Museum, and then we'll be going to Freedmanstown, another Black town right here in Houston, and then to the Buffalo Soldiers Museum in April. So we've got 5 field trips, but there's so many other sites. Actually, next door to the Black Cowboy Museum is the Black Cowboy Hall of Fame. So you can learn about Nat Love, Esom Dart, Jesse Stahl, all these people who have been known to be trick riders. I mean, Jesse Stahl, he would ride bull backwards. Like if you can imagine just how hard it is to hold on to a bucking bull forwards. Imagine doing it backwards.
That's the confidence I want in my life right there. That's awesome. Man,
it's
cool.
amazing. It's amazing. And even like Bill Pickett, who I mentioned, who invented the whole bulldogging technique, he was known to be able to throw a steer with his teeth. That.
What? That's amazing. Let's talk about the music that came from cowboy culture, right? Of course, we're talking about Beyonce, and we've talked about her a few times. But tell me the music influences from Black Cowboys onto what we know and call country music?
We have to go all the way back to when the first people are arriving in the United States as enslaved peoples, I mean, way back to 1619, where you have people that are coming in who recognize these melodies and these African instruments, but they're now pairing it with either English language or uh, the ways that we construct songs here in the United States. But there's so many different connections.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite books on this subject is My Black Country, A Journey Through Country Music by Alice Randall. She is a musician in her own right. And so thinking about her book, but also the connections to the specific instruments that country music uses, such as the banjo. The banjo is definitely a West African instrument that was inspired by the akonting, is a specific type of instrument, a gourd instrument in West Africa, specifically in the Senegal, Gambia region, where you have a gourd stretched over with animal skin. And that is the inspiration that becomes the banjo. And even the longhorn themselves, the longhorn, that descends back to West Africa as well. And really the Sahel region, where you have herders, pastoralists who are herding cattle in Africa. And then they take these same skills to the West as enslaved peoples. But there's so many connections to the music. I mean, in Alice Randall's book, she takes it all the way back to Frederick Douglass. He has this poem called "We Raise the Wheat," and this is kind of considered to be one of the first poems connected to country music. But country music also has roots in minstrelsy, also has roots in Black performance, and really the theft of Black talent and Black performance.
Dr. Odewale, were there any connections to the history of country music and Beyonce's album?
I think one of the most cool things about Beyonce's album and the visuals around this album that we talked about in class is the use of the Limpizzaner horse. I mean, this style of horse, you see her on the white horse in like all the albums, all the visuals, but that's because this specific type of horse is born Black.
What?
So there's a reason why she's using that type of horse. It's born Black, but then as it ages, it turns white.
That's amazing.
So the fact that she's taking country music and reclaiming its Black roots, this is something that is a powerful visualization that is definitely reminiscent of every sort of origin story for Black country music that's blending gospel, that's blending the blues, that's blending all these different types of musical sounds into this blended storytelling that a lot of our Black cowboys are singing.
That's incredible.
And then people record their stories and record those songs.
That's amazing. One last thing on the album. What's your favorite song?
Oh, that's a good question. I think right now, Protector. But I'm heavy listening to Jolene and Daughter on repeat because this week we're talking about Black women in the West in my class before Cowboy Carter.
I want to spend a little bit of time on your course, right? Because you link Black cowboy culture together with freedom. And you even had this very insightful quote in your story with our friend Monique Welch of the Houston Landing, where you said, quote, "My goal is by the end of this class, you all know a lot more about Black freedom than Juneteenth," end quote. Explain that to me.
I think a lot of people in this country think Juneteenth is the beginning and ending of Black freedom, and that all Black people are freed after Juneteenth, and that's not true. There are people who are enslaved a whole year after Juneteenth happens, especially to indigenous tribes in Oklahoma, where I'm from. So our Juneteenth is different than June 19th, 1865, because there are people still enslaved at that time in Oklahoma. And really, Black freedom is something that is celebrated at different points all over the world and even in this country. And we talk about all the different ways people are finding freedom for themselves in this class. Not just the Emancipation Proclamation. That's when a large number of people are freed, but that's not the end of the story.
That is so beautiful. You know, the other thing I was reflecting on when I was thinking about your class, and it's really extra special, right? Because it's coming on the heels as the state is banning DEI at Texas universities, right? Public universities. And if you had a chance, right, to bring some of these Texas lawmakers who passed this bill into your class or in front of your students or in front of us right now, what would you tell them to showcase the importance of a class like yours?
People are going to find their way, no matter how we try to, legislate it or ban it or take it away. People are going to find their way to this history. I think a lot of my students are just born activists, so they know a lot more than I do in terms of where to find banned books and where to find all these other things that are kind of hidden away now. But I think it's on a lot of us that have access to the history to share it. But I also think the idea of legislating or hiding history doesn't actually work very well.
Yeah, agreed. It's a tough thing. History will always make its way to the forefront.
Absolutely.
Right? It's like, might as well learn it, see how it impacts you, how it influences things around you, and see how you can learn from it. We're always told that you learn from history, yet that's not the case anymore, it seems like. Anything I forgot to ask you or you want our listeners to know about the Black cowboy culture here in Houston, in Texas?
Well, I don't know if this is a need to know thing, but I did want to call on one of my ancestors that I found in doing this work that I didn't know about before I started researching.
Tell me.
His name is John Ware, and he's a Black cowboy, but he rode all the way up to Alberta, Canada, and was part of a town up there. Yeah. So thinking about these trail riders, thinking about the people who are riding for thousands of miles in the cold, in the dark, one of my ancestors was doing that work.
Wow. That is beautiful. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Final question. I'm going to end on a positive, fun, lighthearted question, okay? It's Rodeo Week here on CityCast Houston. What's one thing you're excited about to do at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo?
The thing I'm most excited about is to be part of my line dance group. We be mobbing. We'll be dancing on stage. Yes.
When?
It's supposed to be like 2,000 Houston line dancers at the rodeo. I think starting at 2:30. I think they're dancing from 2:30 to 6:30. I don't have the strength to be dancing that long. But I probably got a good hour with me.
That's on March 7th?
That's on March 7th, yeah.
It's
one of the many events.
So hold on. Back up, hold on. So you're going to be with your students presenting this incredibly powerful research. And then at 2:30 p.m., you're going to head up and do the line dance. The big group, 2,000 people. Look at this. I can't wait to watch this. Dr. Odewale, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for this incredible conversation. And I can't wait to talk to you again.
Thank you for having me.
That was Dr. Alicia Odewale. If you want to learn more, I've linked the books and resources Dr. Odewale recommended in our show notes. Also, check out our CityCast Houston Rodeo playlist on Spotify featuring songs inspired by this week's guests and our personal favorites. You can also add your songs in as well. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with 3 of your friends who love Beyonce and drop us a rating and review wherever you listen. And of course, subscribe if you haven't already. Before we go, here's today's rodeo tip brought to you by Destination Bryan. You're going to see a lot of cowboy hat vendors at the rodeo, but did you know you can upgrade your hat with a custom cowboy hat from Catalina Hatters in Bryan? Grab yours during rodeo week so you'll bring home a hat with a story and stand out in the crowd. That will do it for today. I'm Raheel Ramzanali. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something new.
And really, I mean, the first Cowboys.
Pause you there. Hold on. Sorry. I think I heard some like doors opening in the back. I just want to.
Yeah, my daughter just came from the bus.
It's all good. My daughter's about to walk inside too.
Oh, okay.